Hey, Sean here from SpeedCubeReview.com. So I've already made a video on how to solve a cube blindfolded using old Pachman method. I've gotten a lot of comments about exactly how to do it because some people are still confused from the video. So this is going to be an extra video on an entire walkthrough solve, and I'm hoping to hit everything that you could possibly do in a blind solve and all the little issues you could have. So let's get to it. So I've got my blindfold now, just ready to go. And again, this will be an extra video on top of the original blind video. So if you don't know yet about the different algorithms you're going to need, or how to set up moves, exactly even how it works, and you want to know that first, check out the video in the description below. So I'm going to put the scramble right here in the video, so you can do it along with me if you want. Make sure you scramble it with green in front and white on top. Now when you're solving blindfolded, you can start anywhere on the cube, and I've always done red in front, yellow on top. I think that's just because when I was doing regular CFOP solving, I did that a lot. Now, the first thing you're going to do is I memorized the letters for corners, and this is going to be the bank piece, and this is the receiving piece. So the first thing you need to do is figure out where that green color goes for this green, yellow, red piece. And remember, for me, I number these, or letter them, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and then on the back, the left side and the bottom. So that first green piece needs to go right here, which I call I. And then this I color, the yellow, for the yellow, green, orange piece, needs to go here, at B. So we have I, and then B. And then this B piece needs to go, for the red, blue, white, needs to go right here, which is H. So we have I, B, H. This H, the green, red, white, needs to go to L. This L needs to go to K. And then at K, we've actually reached our bank piece. Now, we've only hit these corners. We still have this corner and this corner left. So you have to make sure that you've gone through all of the corners, at least check them, because this corner is actually already solved. Blue, red, yellow, and it's in the right spot. This corner back here is the correct corner, blue, orange, white, but it's not in the correct spot. So, or it's not oriented correctly. So we have to turn it. And what we're going to do is just pick any random side. I'm going to pick this white side, which is T, and it has to move down to there, X. So after we finish the I, B, H, L, K, T, X, that'll finish this cycle, and then turn that piece. Now, it took me a long time at first to memorize all those letters. I think the first time I actually successfully solved a cube blindfold, it took me about 10 minutes to really make sure I had all the letters memorized. And also to remember all those letters, you can just memorize a word. So I might remember IB, and then HLK, I'll remember Hulk, and then TX for Texas. So I'll think of something like this. Now, that's an odd number of letters. If you have an odd number of letters for corners, you'll have an odd number of letters for edges. If you have odd and even, you counted incorrectly somewhere, because you either have odd for corners and odd for edges, or even for corners and even for edges. If it's odd for each of them, you have to do an odd permutation between sets, because what happens is when you're doing the corner swapping, these two edges flip back and forth. And when you do the edge swapping, these two corners flip back and forth. And if you do an odd number, they'll not be in the correct place. So we have to flip those and flip those, which will be an R perm. And I'll show you that as we get to it. Okay, so now let's do edges. In edges, this is your bank piece, and your receiving piece is either going to be here or here, depending on if you're doing a T perm or a J perm, and I'm going to be doing both. So in the bank spot, we have the bank piece. So what do? We literally just pick any random piece. I'll usually just go for D because there's no setup moves. So D needs to go, orange and white piece needs to go back here where O is. O, the blue and white piece needs to go right here for S. And then that S piece needs to go here, which is Q. So we have D, O, S, Q. We're back at the piece we started the cycle with. So we pick another random edge. So I'll just do C, because again, no setup moves for J perm. So now we have C, and C is going to go where G is. So C, that red sticker needs to go to G. G, the yellow or the green and red, needs to go to L. This L needs to go to N. And then N, that green and white, needs to go to V. V, green and orange, needs to go to J. And J, red and yellow, needs to go to E. And we're back at that first piece we started that cycle with. So we have D, O, S, Q, and then C, G, L, N, V, J, E. Now we're almost done, but we also have this piece, which we didn't get to, but it's already solved. And this piece we didn't get to, but it's not oriented correctly. So we're just going to pick R and move it to, or sorry, H and move it to R. You could do R and move it to H, and it'll be the exact same thing. Now for this, I'll remember DOS for DOS, and Q is just an odd letter. For CGLN, I'll think of cage and lane. So you're memorizing more words instead of letters. Okay, so let's get going. Now I'll put on the blindfold. And first we're going to do corners. So again, that first one was I, which is right here. So I'm going to set it up with an R prime and do the altered Y permutation. And then reverse that setup move. And then we have B, which is right here, and I'll set it up with an R and D prime. And reverse that setup move. Now these setup moves are very intuitive. It might take a little bit to try to figure out how they go, but you don't need to look up all the algorithms for setting them up. Just mess around with it. Edge setting up is a little more awkward, and I'll show you that when we get to it, because we only want to do R, D, and F moves, so we don't mess up these three pieces. Okay, so we have IB. Now we need H, which is right here, so I'm going to set it up and reverse that setup move. And then we have L, which is already in that bank spot. And then we have K, which I'm going to set up this way. And reverse the setup move. And then, since we just have T and X, so T is back here. I'm going to set it up with a D2. And then X, I'm going to do D, or D prime. No, that's a D. And then F prime. And now corners should be done. Now, like I said, it switched these two edges back and forth. And right now they're different than what we started with. So we need to flip them back. And we're going to switch these two corners because they're going to be switched back and forth during the T and J perms. So for my R permutation, I first learned a different one for blind solving, but now I just use my regular one that I would do. So I'm going to turn the cube and do that. And then turn it back. So that flipped these two and these. Now, we have the edges. So, D, there's no setup, I'm just going to do a T perm. Then we have O, and O is back here, so this is kind of awkward. I'm going to do a D2 and a small L prime, and do a J perm. And reverse that. So, for edges, you can only move L and small L's, as well as D and small D's. And that's going to be the safest way of setting things up. So now we have S, which I'm going to do a D move and a small L prime. And then reverse that setup move. And then we have Q. And this one's, again, kind of awkward. It's right here, so I'm going to do L2 and set it up for a J perm. And now we go to our next cycle, which is C. and then G, and then L is right here, so I'm going to do a lowercase d prime, and then L prime, and reverse those setup moves, and then N, just an L move, and then V, I'm going to do D2 and L2, and then J, I'm going to do a lowercase d, and then L, and then I have E, and E is right here, so I need to move it down, so a lowercase l, d prime, L2, and that'll put in this T spot. So if I just did a J perm, it's not oriented, I need to do that color on top. Okay, now we just need to flip these two, so we have the H, and then R. And now it should be solved. So, there you go, we kind of hit everything where cycles are breaking, so we have to go to a new random one, a piece is already solved, the bank piece is already solved, a piece in the right place but oriented incorrectly, and that's really everything. If you have an even number of moves, you don't have to do that R permutation, but that's pretty much it. Now, as far as setup moves, again, that takes a little more time to get that intuitive, but it gets really fast, and the hardest thing is really just getting used to memorizing those letters. You have to really train your brain to learn to memorize all of those letters. So thank you for watching. If you still have any questions, feel free to put in the comment section below, or you can send me a message. A lot of people have done that on Facebook. Please hit like and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and as always, stop by speedkidreview.com for more news and reviews.